Hello and welcome. In this video, I want to talk about the Brood and how the Brood suffers from success. Well, the short answer is that the Brood has access to legendary weapons like the one-handed Mace and the Dagan's hammer, this one. And both of these weapons are really good. And that's the reason why you build the entire Brood around this specific weapon. Um, when you do that, you lose a lot of flexibility to choose other weapons or setups. And that's why this build is very fragile. Because if the legendary weapon gets nerfed, like the Dagan's hammer already got hit, and also the 100 mace, this build is the 100 mace brute build is really easy to understand and also really effective because, and here's something in general, every attack scales with a main attribute, like strength or dexterity. And depending on your character class, well, it is strength or dexterity. So for the brute, the swordsman, um, you scale with strength, and with bowmans and rangers, pugilists, you scale with dexterity. And that means that if you put a lot of points into strength or the main attribute your character is scaling with, then you deal a lot of damage. And that's what you want, basically. But you also want the other stats like willpower or movement. Well, you want to spend something in these categories because this makes you more flexible overall. And other like good damage multipliers are the critical hit. And now that's the reason why the one-handed mace is such a beast, because the weapon allows you to skip everything that involves spending resource into critical hit, because this weapon always crits if you have more strength than your opponent. So you have a double profit here. You spend everything in strength, therefore increasing your overall damage, and then you also get a free critical hit, which is a damage multiplier of, well, currently 123%. And there's also the thing that increasing your strength also increases critical damage. So, well, it synergizes so well. So you put everything in strength to increase your base damage in strength and also your critical damage, and then you always crit. So this one is really the cookie cutter build. You can get the maze pretty early, and the brute will carry you through the game. The one disadvantage though is that there's only this one weapon, and every other brute weapon is compared to the one-handed mace. So there's no point in playing other like weapons for the brute because you have this powerful thing here. Okay, just keep that in mind. That's the reason why most players only have one brute, because there's only one legendary weapon, and all the other weapons sucks in comparison. Yeah, let's look at the traits. It's pretty basic. We want obviously strength increased by 5% with the trait strong. And also we want solitary, but in this case my character is my starting character. That's why I choose, well, I have chosen Bloodthirsty. It doesn't do anything in this particular build. Actually, it does nothing because we don't need critical hit. Um, so if you also have a main character, Brute, starting character, and you want to choose to make him the one-handed mace-wielding maniac, you could have chosen Crick, for example, to give him more speed or more movement. Yeah, for the job, we obviously want the blacksmith for the 10 strength points. So for the specialization, you have two options here. Most of the builds I saw on Reddit and the internet and doing my research, choosing the destroyer, and that has the ability to apply weakening and vulnerability. But I think the smasher is better, but I will explain it in a minute. Okay, so for the level 3 perks, we have Valorous Duel, obviously. because we will disengage and use the disengage to deal extra damage and trigger Jacob's opportunities. We will pick Armor Breaker, which is just the best trait ever, because this one increases your damage against armor, and also you gain brutality and inspiration if you break enemy armor, which is, well, easy. So you get a permanent 30% damage increase, and also your movement doubled. This one just is insane, this perk. For the next one, you have Guard Breaker, which, well, ignores enemy guards. Tanking is not existent anymore. For the level 10 perk, I have Defensive Riposte. We deal an attack of opportunity 50% of the time we disengage. We will use this one to deal extra damage. That's why we have the Valorous Duel, because we re-engage and disengage with different abilities to gain extra Valor points. For the class specialization, I choose Temperance. This one gives damage reduction and Riposte. Riposte is just a guaranteed attack of opportunity. You can also choose Cruelty, which increases critical damage against targets with at least one debuff. It's pretty easy to apply a debuff, but sometimes your strategic options don't allow it. So I think you can, well, ignore the 20% inconsistent damage increase and go for the guaranteed 70% damage reduction and the guaranteed riposte, because you probably will always get hit at some point of the game. Another option would be one-on-one, which increases your damage in combat by 30% and gives you a flat 30% damage reduction against the opponent you're fighting against. This is also valid because, well, you will be engaged a lot of the time. So these both are valid options, I think. I tested this one and I had more fun with this one, so that's why I go for this. Now to the Destroyer. I already told you that we want with this weapon a high strength. And if you pick the Destroyer, you can see it right here. We lose strength and gain constitution, which gives us basically a little bit of HP. But the Smasher and the Vanguard gives us like strength at the cost of constitution. So we have less health, we are theoretically less tanky. But we gain strength and we want to gain every point of strength we are able to get. So that's why I picked this one. Also, this one applies poison, so you theoretically could use cruelty with this one. And it's a little bit of an AoE attack. It has a small arc, it can hit multiple enemies. Also, this one allows you to wear medium armor, where the Destroyer allows you to wear heavy armor. Heavy armor gives a penalty of movement. It reduces the movement by 2. You're more tanky, obviously, because you have more armor and guard. But we will see that this is not really important. So we take the 13 points in strength instead of the constitution and the tankiness. And if you want to play the Destroyer, I would recommend the Defender's Breastplate, which gives critical damage. And also the helm does also critical damage. So the whole set of the heavy armor from the guard gives critical damage, which you want because you always crit. But with the medium armor, we have access to the medium armor set from the Brotherhood, which is increase in attack of opportunity. So we have, with the helm and the armor set, in total 12% increase of attack of opportunity. And attack of opportunity scale with the main attribute. That's why it's quite nice. And that's basically the damage output from this character, because we deal a lot of damage with our basic attack, sure, but we are still able to kill a lot of enemies just on retaliation. So we use the Heater Shield, which gives a free attack of opportunity whenever we are engaged. And we also use the enhanced visibility helm stamp to get an attack of opportunity whenever we are attacked. Both of them stack, actually. We get attacked and we hit one time for the Heater Shield and one time for the enhanced visibility, which gives us 2 attacks of opportunity that are currently, what, 80% or 100%? 103%. of our main attribute. So currently roughly around 110 damage. And this can also crit. So yeah, that's that's the point. Attack of opportunity can also crit. We use the armor layers that increase strength, obviously, because we want the maximum amount of strength. And for the oils, I use the Arthes oil, which increases another 15% attack of opportunity, and the unstable oil, which gives us an attack of opportunity 25% of the time we attack, and the unstable oil in combination, the belt accessory, additional 25%. So it's a 50-50 if we attack another time. And that's basically the whole build for the one-handed burst. It's pretty straightforward. When we look at the two-handed brute, which is with the Dagan's hammer, it's basically the same. So we use the same perks, except there's one difference. We use the Valorous Chain, where we hit multiple enemies, we gain Valor, because it's a AoE weapon. We want to hit multiple enemies. That's the best choice here. And we use Cruelty to increase 20% and the damage, because we can't really utilize the Temperance or the one-on-one because we are not engaged with the enemy. We don't even get close to the enemy. We just hit them from the far with our huge range weapon, AoE weapon. So these will never trigger. So that's why we choose Cruelty. But we need to apply a debuff first, and that's why we choose Vanguard, which applies slowdown and also gives us Fury. Fury is 50% damage increase on a weapon with AoE. These kinds of buff are very strong because, well, we hit multiple enemies and can profit from the 50% damage increase on multiple enemies. Also, for the weapon, we really want to crit. That's why we need to break the critical hit at 100%. That's why I use the critical hit increasing armor layers, and also the armor itself increase critical hit. And we use the legendary armor layer that increase strength and critical damage also. So for the helm, I use the one that increases critical damage by 50% when we attack somebody that hasn't acted yet, which is insane. You could also use the Pirate's Lucky Charm, for example, because you hit multiple enemies and stack for each enemy you hit 5% critical damage. But in theory, you have to hit 10 enemies to have the same critical damage boost for your weapon as this one already gives you. Yep. For the hammer itself, I use Infectious Oil and Strength. That's because the strength increases your total strength by 10%, and the Infectious Oil applies a debuff that is also, dealing damage in the end of the turn. But we want to apply a debuff which every hit to trigger the Cruelty to deal 20% more damage. So you can choose also the poison or the bleeding. Choose whatever oil you want. Just apply a debuff on the enemy. You can also choose critical hit, oil. Well, the only oil you don't need is perforating oil, because from the guard breaker you gain already 100% armor pen. For the traits, solitary obviously and strength, but this one has sadly no strength, it just is confident. Some points in movement, 15 at willpower, and the rest strength. And some critical hit, obviously, because we want to reach the 100%. For the belt accessory, I use the Trophy of Legends. This one is a cool belt accessory, and I think the Dagan's Hammer 200 Vanguard Brute is the best class to utilize it, because we can use our basic action twice. And since we kill 3 or 4 enemies with our weapon, we can do it 2 times, which is insane. So we can kill 8 enemies or something, depending on the positioning of the enemies. Also, if you don't beat the trophy of, oh, you don't have the trophy of legend because you get this from the arena of legends. You can choose basically every other belt accessory that increases your critical hit or critical chance or strength or whatever. There are really some flexible options here. Okay, strength from the blacksmith, obviously, and that's it. There are not really special foods that are required to use this build. I just use the basic foods that gives critical damage and strength and critical hit. Okay, let's look at the combat scenario. So we fight the guards. The guards, well, are on the highest difficulty, probably the toughest enemies you can find. Because they're tanky, they are like dealing a lot of damage. They have reinforcements. They're just cruel. But we will see how we can beat them up. Gaining some valor points first because he's my commander. Let's see. We kill this one because this one hopefully attacks into my brood. Okay, so the first we do is we do the basic attack. We know that this one only has 123 strength, and we have like double the amount. And we smack him with a love tap. And we follow up with a attack of opportunity from our unstable oil. So that's the first part. We can also just smack down this one. Oh no, we got confused. So we disengage and we triggered the 50-50 from the disengage. Sadly, this one confused us, which, well, allows us to don't get any more buffs. Well, it's not necessary because we already have the brutality buff and the inspiration buff, so we have a lot of movement. Okay, so let's see what we can do when we engage this one into a fight, and we try to disengage, and we smack him with the disengage. So even the taunt ability is basically a main attack. Now we position him right here so that this guy can attack into us. And we will see that the enhanced visibility and the heat counter will heat shield with the powerful counter will just kill this one. First attack, second attack. See? And that's why the brute in this build or this kind of scenario is very, very effective. Because in theory, you can just put your brute in a horde of enemies and kill all of them by retaliation. And if you use the destroyer, you actually can do that. You only lose a couple of points here and are even more tankier. Because I already lost like a third of my armor, and if I used the destroyer, I would be even more tankier. But it depends. I like the medium armor one because I like the flexibility and the movement. Yep. Let's look at the 200 brute. So first, we want to use the charge ability. Sweet. Now we gain the brutality buff and the inspiration. So we also have, because we destroyed the armor. We don't get the fury because the guy is dead, but it doesn't really matter. So we have a lot of movement now to play around with. And we want to kill these three. Look at this big arc. Okay, I have to go one step back here. No, one step. Isn't it possible to kill all three of them? I thought, right? Yeah, this is the arc. And now we hit all three of them. The Dagan's hammer attacks an additional time when we hit multiple enemies. So in total 3 times. There's nothing in the game that can withstand that one. Well, no human, I have to say. No human can do that. And thanks to the Arena of Legends, we can attack an additional time. So we can also kill this one. And you see, we don't really engage the enemy, or we're not even close. We are pretty safe from every retaliation. And still can move somewhere. And there you have it. The brutes everybody is talking about. And why they are good and how to build them. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.